Have you had a chance to look at those things, Mr. Stroller?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection to me receiving those as, how many were there, Miss Corey?
On the photographs, Your Honor?
Well, I know there's one disc, so it states exhibit
Well, the exhibits are on the disc, so it states exhibits
1 through 160. Okay.
consecutively.
And then the second disc,
The second disc states, I'd have to look at it, whatever the number is on there, Judge. I think it's,
was it,
is it
was it 170?
Could be. I've got my list.
168?
Yes, sir, 168.
All right, then, without objection, the states 1,
If I can just proceed with a housekeeping matter regarding that, Your Honor?
sure. Need the court reporter?
Yes, sir.
I'll be right with you now. All right, so we have in evidence states 1 through 160.
Yes, sir.
Then, Mr. Stroller, we also have states 169. Any objection to that?
No, Your Honor.
And states 167, I believe it was?
Yes, sir, and it's a composite of 5911 calls.
All right, and that's a composite exhibit of 5911 calls. Any objection to that, Mr. Stroller?
No, sir, Your Honor.
All right, so that'll be received as states 167, I believe it was.
Yes, sir.
Sorry about that, ma'am. If you'll raise your right hand, the clerk will administer the oath to you.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes.
All right, ma'am, if you'll come right around this way for me, the bailiff will help you into your seat there. And just speak directly into that microphone and keep your voice up so everybody can hear you, all right?
Okay.
May I inquire, Your Honor?
Yes, ma'am.
Please state your name for the jury.
Aaliyah Harris,
How old are you, Ms. Harris?
19 years old,
And where do you currently live?
Boca Raton.
Are you in school down there?
Yes, ma'am.
And where do you go to school?
Florida Atlantic University,
What year are you at Florida Atlantic University?
my freshman year.
Where did you graduate from high school?
Wolfson High School,
And could you tell the jury what year you graduated?
2013 of June.
Now, Ms. Harris, do you know someone by the name of Jordan Davis?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you first meet Jordan Davis?
August 2012,
Where did you meet him?
at school.
Could you tell the jury what your relationship was like with Jordan Davis?
We had a good, friendly relationship at first, and then we started dating.
Now, during this time, Ms. Harris, how often would you see him?
Every day.
Now, during this time, and that's the fall of 2012, were you also working?
Yes, ma'am.
And where were you working?
Urban Outfitters at the town center.
And Ms. Harris, how often would you work?
Your Honor?
Yes.
To address the jurors, I believe there's an issue with the microphone.
Can you move that a little closer? Insert, let's see if that works, and if you need the little hearing aids, we can use that as well, so just let me know. Have you been all right so far?
Yes.
Okay. All right, ma'am, just be sure and speak right into that microphone, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
And maybe we can up that volume a little bit. Go ahead, though.
And Ms. Harris, how often would you work during this time?
Maybe a couple of times a week.
Okay. Now, Ms. Harris, I'd like to turn your attention to November 23rd of 2012. That's the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Yes, ma'am.
Were you working that day?
Yes, I was.
And was that at Urban Outfitters?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember what time you got to work?
About 5 p.m.
And what time were you working until?
About 2 a.m.
Do you remember what time the store actually closed?
11
Okay.
p.m.
Okay. While you were working at Urban Outfitters, did you ever see Jordan Davis?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And where were you when you saw him?
At work.
Did Jordan Davis come into the store?
Yes, ma'am.
Was he by himself when he came into the store?
No, ma'am.
Who else was with him?
2 other friends, Tevin and Leland.
Now, had you ever met Leland before?
Yes, ma'am.
When had you first met Leland?
At school.
Was that also in Wolfson High School?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, had you ever met Tevin before?
Yes, ma'am.
When had you met Tevin?
At high school.
Now, do you remember whether or not anyone else was with them that day?
No, ma'am.
When Jordan Davis came into the store, what was his demeanor like?
He was in good spirits. He was happy.
Did you know he was coming into the store?
No, ma'am.
Was it a surprise?
Yes.
Ms. Harris, did you get to talk to Jordan Davis when he came into the store?
Yes, ma'am, briefly.
Did you all have any sort of fight or argument at that point in time?
No, ma'am.
And how long did you get to speak with him for?
A couple of minutes.
When he left, were you all on good terms?
Yes, ma'am.
What time did he leave the store?
I'm not sure exactly what time, but I know it was dark outside.
And after he left the store, Ms. Harris, did you ever speak with Jordan Davis again?
No, ma'am.
Now, Ms. Harris, I believe if you look on your screen, I'm showing you what's previously been stipulated and entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 24.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that up on the screen?
Yes, sir.
And Ms. Harris, is that a photograph of Jordan Davis?
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Mr. Strolla, cross-examination?
Yes, sir. Judge, I have a portable mic, and I do it here with my notes.
Sure.
Thank you. Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's on.
Oh, sorry. Ms. Harris, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you.
And you actually left Wolfson High School and came back, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You were there as a freshman but came back
As
that
a senior.
year?
Yes,
And that
sir.
was in September of 2012?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you didn't know Jordan Davis prior to your senior year, is that correct?
No, sir, I did not know Jordan Davis.
So when you started school in September of 2012, you had just met him after you started school?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that's, you said you were friends for a little bit, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then you started dating?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you start dating in October, November? When did you start dating?
At the end of September.
Okay. So you dated him for about 60 days until he unfortunately had passed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Were you dating him the entire time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you'd characterize your relationship with Mr. Davis as a solid relationship, correct?
Yes, sir.
You guys talked every day?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Exclusively dating each other?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he came to see you that night because you are his steady girlfriend, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you only did briefly talk to him, right?
Yes, sir.
And that was because, with all due respect, you're working in a retail store on Black Friday, correct?
Yes, sir.
Things a little crazy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you said you knew it was dark out when he left, but that's because at that mall it's outside
Yes, sir.
and you could see through the front store?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this was in November of 2012, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it gets dark about 5:30 at night.
Yes, sir.
And sometimes in Jacksonville with the rain and clouds, sometimes a little bit earlier.
Yes, sir. But it was not rainy that day.
Okay. Now, isn't it true that you've never seen Jordan Davis with a weapon?
Yes, sir.
Does that even include a tactical or assault knife or tactical knife or pocket knife, anything like that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the 2 months you were with him, he never had a weapon at all, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did you know he was carrying a tactical knife that night with him in his pocket?
No, sir.
Would he have ever told you why he carried a knife, or you wouldn't have even known?
No, sir.
And you actually realized that Leland and Mr. Davis were friends, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you said you talked to Jordan Davis every day.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you even did you hang out with him every day?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you told me that you guys would hang out, being you and Jordan Davis and Leland, about 3 times a week as a group, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did he tell you where he was going after he left the store?
No, sir, he did not.
Did you know where he was going?
No, sir.
And you said you didn't even know he was coming up there to see you.
No, sir.
When you got off of work, what time did you get off of work?
About 2 a.m.
Okay.
the next morning.
And that was the next morning following Jordan Davis being shot, correct?
That was the night he got shot. The
Well, 2
2
o'clock in
a.m.
the morning would be just after.
Yes. Yes, sir.
When you got off work, did you ever call Jordan Davis?
No, sir.
Did you ever text him?
No, sir.
Okay. When you woke up, did you call him?
No, sir.
No further questions, Judge.
Anything else, Ms. Wilson?
No, Your Honor.
May she be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Stroll?
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, ma'am. You're
Thank you.
excused. State's next witness.
Stephen Smith. Stephen Smith.
Stephen Smith, please.
No, I didn't go too far past yet.
Mr. Smith, if you'll come forward for me, right up here to the front, please. And if you come straight forward and raise your right hand, the clerk will administer the oath.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
All right, sir, if you'll come right around this way for me, please. And you can have a seat there in the witness chair. Be sure and speak loudly into that microphone, all right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Ms. Corey, go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. State your name for the record.
Stephen Dwayne Smith.
Can you spell your first and middle name, please?
Yes, ma'am. Steven. Middle name Dwayne, Duane.
All right, sir. Where do you reside, in which city and county?
Briceville, Florida. That's in Nassau County.
Just north of Duval County?
Yes, ma'am.
What is your profession?
I'm a general contractor
How long have you been a general contractor?
for 20 plus years.
And what is the specific nature of your business?
We build multifamily apartment complexes. I'm a project manager for the general contracting company.
Let me take your attention back to November of 2012, specifically to November 23rd. Do you recall that date?
Yes, ma'am.
And were you working in your capacity as a general contractor at that time?
Yes, ma'am.
And in which area of Northeast Florida were you living at that time?
I was living in Briceville.
And in which area of Northeast Florida were you working on that day?
I was working in Deerwood Complex, which is Duval County.
All right. On that Friday evening of November 23rd, let me take your attention to approximately 7:30 or around that time. Was this particular Friday the day after Thanksgiving?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
And had you worked that entire day?
Yes, ma'am.
And where did you work?
At Deerwood.
What type of work were you doing in Deerwood?
We're doing a house renovation.
Where is Deerwood in relation to the Gate gas station at
It's-
the corner of Southside and Bay Meadows?
It's just east of it, towards 9A.
And are both of those locations in Jacksonville, Duval County, Florida?
Yes, ma'am, they are.
Sir, I'm going to show you a photograph marked into evidence as State's Exhibit 3. And ask, do you see that on your screen?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Can you touch your screen and show the jurors the area where Deerwood is, where you were working? Okay.
Is that good enough for me to exit a little more?
Just a little more. Okay, very good. And that is a residential area, you said?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. And what time did you finish your work inside the Deerwood Estates?
7:15.
Were you alone that evening in your vehicle?
Yes, ma'am, I was.
Were you in a work vehicle?
I was in my company truck. Yes, ma'am.
And did you leave the Deerwood area around that time?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Where did you go?
I went down to the Gate gas station.
Which way did you take from Deerwood to the Gate gas station?
I turned onto, I guess that would be Bay Meadows. I made a right. I came down towards Southside and turned into the Gate complex from that direction.
Can you do that on the photograph for the jurors to see?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
All right. Think you can erase it. Sir, can you describe your vehicle for the jury?
I had a black Toyota Tundra.
Is that a truck?
Yes, ma'am, it is. It's a pickup truck.
Is it a big truck?
It's a good-sized truck, yes, ma'am.
All right. And are you familiar with the intersection of Southside and Bay Meadows?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Have you pulled into that Gate gas station prior to the evening that we're talking about?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
And why do you usually go to that Gate gas station?
I'll either get gas or get drinks or get something for the guys, Gatorades or something for the guys,
All right. So on that particular evening, for what purpose did you pull into the Gate gas station?
to get a fountain drink.
I'm going to show you, sir, now what's been marked into evidence as State's Exhibit 2, and ask you to show the jurors on this particular aerial how you pulled into the Gate gas station.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. When you got to about that point where you've drawn the arrow, did you notice a red Dodge Durango?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Can you tell the jurors on this photo approximately where you saw that Durango?
Yes, ma'am.
Now let me stop and ask you a few questions. Was it nighttime by the time you pulled in?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Do you recall approximately what time this was by the time you had left Deerwood and gotten there?
7:30 range, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay. And what were the weather conditions?
It was clear and cool.
What is the lighting like at the Gate gas station, or what was it like on that evening?
It was adequate. It was good.
Do they have outdoor lights?
Yes, ma'am.
And do they have lights outside of the store as well as over at the gas pumps?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And in the parking area?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you, when you pulled in, where was the red Dodge Durango parked?
Where I've indicated here on the, away from where I parked.
Okay. When you pulled up, was there an open spot to the right of the red Dodge Durango?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
And next to that open spot, can you describe what that area is? And we'll be showing you a photograph in a moment, but can you go ahead and describe it for the jury?
Yes, ma'am. There's a grass area, and then there's a sidewalk that goes into the front of the Gate gas station.
Tell these jurors why you didn't pull into that empty spot next to the sidewalk.
I heard the loud music. Didn't want to deal with it.
Did you know from what source that loud music was coming?
It was coming from the red Durango.
Okay. Could you see the occupants of that red Dodge Durango?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you notice who was inside?
There were 4 gentlemen in there. There appeared to be 4 gentlemen in there.
All right. And were your windows up or down?
My windows were up.
Were their windows up or down?
They were down. The passenger side was down anyway.
Were there other parking spots available for you to pull into?
Yes, ma'am.
What did you do?
I pulled into the other parking spot.
Which one?
The one indicated on the opposite side of the entry and the plant bed.
Did you have to put it in reverse to back up to that spot?
Yes, ma'am. Usually I would pull in the other one because it's easier to make the turn, but I had to, it's a larger truck, doesn't turn sharp turns.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean.
It doesn't turn sharp turns. I apologize. Sorry.
Did you have any trouble finding another parking spot?
No, ma'am.
Were there even other parking spots that were vacant that you could have chosen to park in?
Yes, ma'am.
At the time that you made this decision to reverse and park in a different spot, did you see a black Volkswagen Jetta anywhere in the parking lot?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Did you park your car in that spot?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And was anyone in your car your truck, I'm sorry, at that time?
No, ma'am, there was not.
Did you exit your truck?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you go inside the store?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And for what purpose again?
I went in to get a fountain drink.
Did you go anywhere other than to the fountain section of the store?
No, ma'am.
Did you speak to any of the customers as you went into the fountain area?
Not that I recollect, no, ma'am.
How long would you say it took you to make a fountain drink?
A couple minutes.
During the time you were at the fountain, were you aware of anything going on in the parking lot?
No, ma'am. You can still hear the music. That was it.
Okay. And when you approached the clerk at the gas station, did you say something to the clerk about that music?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Tell the jurors what you said.
I asked her, I said, I wish they'd turn that up. It's my favorite song.
Okay.
Being a smart aleck.
Okay. And did the clerk say anything?
Just kind of laughed. That was it.
All right. Did you pay for your drink?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
What did you do then?
I went back and got it. I went out of the store going towards my truck.
Is there more than one set of doors to your knowledge to go directly to your vehicle?
Not that I'm aware of, no, ma'am.
Now, I'm going to show you two photographs. First, we'll show you State's Exhibit 5 and ask you, sir, the red has to be on. Oh, it's okay. There's no markings on your photo, right?
No, ma'am, there's not.
Do you see any, Judge? Just want to
No.
make sure. Okay. Then let's start with State's Photo 5, and let me ask you, sir, can you please show the jurors on this particular photograph where you ended up parking? And put a 1 on that spot, okay? And then can you draw a circle around the spot where you had first seen the red Dodge Durango? And put an X on the spot that you said was empty, but that you backed away from. Now I want you to use, I guess, a plus sign just so we can tell, and show the jurors when you walked out where you stood. When you stood in that spot, had a car pulled in to the empty spot that's designated by the X.
Yes, ma'am.
Describe that car for this jury.
It was a Volkswagen, a dark colored Volkswagen.
Did you see anyone inside that car?
There was a gentleman sitting in the driver's seat.
Did you notice whether or not the red Dodge Durango was still in its original spot?
It was still there, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you hear the music still coming from that Durango at that point?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Okay. Did you hear anyone in the red Dodge Durango say anything to anyone?
No, ma'am.
How well could you see the occupant of the black Jetta?
Very clear.
Where was that person sitting?
In the driver's seat.
Was there any vehicle or any object of any kind between the black Jetta I'm sorry, let me back up. Let me strike that question. Were both cars pulled in normally with the hoods at the edge of the sidewalk?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And did you see any object or any person standing in between those two cars?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Did you see whether the doors of the red Dodge Durango were open or closed?
I didn't pay attention to him, no, ma'am.
Okay. What were you about to do?
I was about to make a turn and walk towards my truck door.
And what stopped you?
I heard someone yell, or someone say something very loud.
And what did you hear that person say?
No, you're not going to talk to me that way.
All right. Can you use your voice to try to convey to the jury the volume of that person's voice?
You're not going to talk to me that way.
Was it a male voice or a female voice?
Male.
And could you tell where that voice was coming from?
The direction it was coming from was the parked Jetta.
Okay. And the windows, I believe you said, on the red Dodge Durango were down.
On the passenger side they were, yes, ma'am.
Did you hear any voices projected towards you over the Jetta?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Let me take you now, sir, to State's photo number 6 and ask you, that's just a slightly different view, but can you show the jurors on that little, the little plant area next to the sidewalk, was there anything obstructing your hearing or your view of the black Jetta as it was parked in that very first spot?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And can you circle on that picture again where you were standing to show the jurors your vantage point? All right. And realizing, of course, these photos were taken well after you had seen everything you're describing to the jury. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And if you'll go now to State's Exhibit 10 in evidence, please. And let me ask you, is this a full-on view of the two parking spots that you've already described?
Yes, ma'am.
And again, if you can write a J in the parking spot where the Jetta was. It's not the greatest writing tool,
I
but
apologize. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. And if you could write a D in the spot where the Durango was. From your vantage point on the sidewalk just past those bushes, did you notice whether either car was much forward of the other one or anything of that nature?
They appear to be pulled in equally.
Okay. When you heard what you believe to be the occupant of the Jetta say those words, did you ever hear anyone in the red car say anything back to him?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Okay. Did you ever see anyone in the red Dodge Durango brandish any sort of weapon?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Any stick?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Any cylindrical object?
No, ma'am, I didn't.
Any knife?
No, ma'am.
Please tell the jurors what happened next.
When I heard someone yell, I immediately turned around and I saw a pistol in the front seat between the steering wheel, glove compartment area. It was a big silver chrome, either 9mm or a 45. It was a large caliber pistol.
Tell the jurors how you could see that.
I turned around and it was right here. I had a pistol.
And what portion of the black Jetta were you looking through to be able to observe what you just described?
The passenger's window.
Okay. And was there anyone that you noticed in the passenger seat or in the back seat of the black Jetta?
No, ma'am.
What happened then?
The gun was pulled around and shots were fired at the red Durango.
Okay. Was there someone firing those shots?
Yes, ma'am.
Who did you notice that to be?
The driver.
Okay. And what happened when the first shots were fired at the Durango?
Shots were fired at the Durango. The Durango backed out and took off towards Southside Boulevard.
All right. And I may not be using the appropriate turn. I always call it a two-point turn. Did the Durango back up completely and then pull forward?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So you never saw, or did you ever see the Durango just back completely up in one smooth move?
No, ma'am. It backed up, stopped, and then went in the opposite direction away from the front door gate.
Did you, at that time, could you tell if any of the shots that had been fired thus far had hit the Durango?
Yes, ma'am.
How could you tell at that time?
The side of the Durango they sold stickers that have the little metal thing. It looks like a bullet hole, and that's exactly what it looked like on the side of the car.
All right.
Or the Durango, rather.
And again, was there anything obstructing your view when you were watching all of this?
No, ma'am.
Did you see the driver of the Jetta fire any more shots?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell the jurors what happened.
Once the Durango pulled down approximately 4 or 5 further spaces than where they were, it shot it 2 to 3 more times.
All right. And where was the driver at the time that next volley of shots that you described was fired?
I'm not sure if he was in the car or out of the car.
Okay. Did you then see anyone exit the store and get into that Jetta?
A lady came outside and he said, "Get in the car," and she kind of asked what's going on. He said, "Get in the car." She got in the passenger seat. They backed out and the car left. The Jetta left.
All right. Let me show you State's Exhibit 125 in evidence, sir, and ask you, does that appear to be the black Jetta, realizing, of course, that this is in a different location at the time?
Yes, ma'am, it appears to be.
Okay. Now, Judge, may I have your permission to ask the witness to step down, and may I use a chair to show the jurors something?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If we can get one of the rolling chairs, all right?
Certainly, Judge.
All right.
Mr. Smith, what I'm going to ask you to do with Mr. Guy's assistance is I would like for you to consider that the front counsel table where Ms. Wolfson is the red Durango. And I'd like you to put that chair in where the driver of the Jetta would have been. And if you can approximate the distance, that would be great. Mr. Guy, I need you. If you'll go, and then I would like you to put Mr. Guy at your vantage point as you were coming out. The gate doors would be sort of where the end of the jury box is. So if you'll put Mr. Guy where you came out of the gate station.
She'd have to be the Jetta. It's a little bit. There's not quite enough room. She's the Durango.
Right. The table's the Durango.
Right. The driver of the Jetta was in this area here. The width of the Jetta was probably somewhere in here, and I was
Oh, there's not quite enough room.
not quite enough room. Yes, ma'am.
Would you say you were standing where Mrs. Simpkins, our court reporter, is?
I was.
May he go around, Judge? Would that be too
Sure.
intrusive?
Sure, no, it's all right.
That's yes, ma'am. I was right in that area. May have been slightly back, maybe a foot behind where she's at.
All right, sir. And would you now get in the seat, the driver's seat? And Mr. Guy, I guess it's okay because I can't put you where he was. But let me just ask you this. Was there anything from the area where Mrs. Simpkins is, where you said you were standing, to where you're sitting now as the driver of the Jetta that obstructed your view of what you're about to show the jury?
No, ma'am.
Then I want you to show them the motions that he made in retrieving the gun. All right. And were you able to tell whether or not he had to put a round in the chamber?
I didn't. Once I saw the pistol, that's all I focused on. I didn't pay attention to the cockpit loader
and just show them to the best of your ability how he fired the gun towards the Durango. Okay? All right. Thank you, sir. And now, sir, if you'll resume the stand. We're about to publish States 168, which is video surveillance from inside of the Gate gas station. And did you review that at our request?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And did you see yourself on that video?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And does that video aid in explaining to the jury your timing of being in the gate and walking outside compared to when the shots were fired?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Your Honor, at this time, we'd ask to publish States 168 in evidence.
All right.
It's up here.
And whoever's going to do that, we can publish 168. Aren't computers grand? In the old days, you'd have a projector and you'd hit a button and we'd be watching it.
Until the projector broke.
Well, that's true. Those things happen too. I think we're getting there.
Yes, sir. And Mr. Smith, what I'll ask you to do is allow it to play, but at the point you see yourself in this video, just tell the jurors which person is you.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Thank you.
I'm not sure how large that is on the jurors' screens. It's very small on mine. I don't know if you can
It's not on their
maximize
screens
that.
yet, Judge. I think if you'll allow us to get that up full screen, and then if you hit publish,
There we go.
it's large on our screens.
Is it large on there?
It's not on here yet.
Oh,
We can see it on our monitors, and it's as large as we can get it.
all right, it's coming.
Yes, sir.
And then we're good with publish to all.
It's not on the juror screens yet.
We're not seeing it on the juror's screen.
Judge, I think it's there.
That's me. Yes, sir. I
But
am.
we need to back
And
up,
that-
please. Thank you so much, Ms. Walker.
Ladies and gentlemen, can you see it now? Okay,
That's-
so let's go back and
That's me.
start it from the beginning again. And then, again, I think the question was, when you see yourself, Mr. Smith, speak up, but be sure and speak loudly because obviously there's audio on this
Yes, sir.
video.
That's me.
Oh, look, it's your true one.
To my right, behind me.
Were you on the sidewalk by this time?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my God, somebody's shooting. Somebody's shooting out their car. I swear to God.
Sir, is that approximately the amount of time from the time you exited the store until you heard the first shot that you had the chance to observe the things that you've described to the jury here today?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And were you as close as from where Ms. Simpkins was to where you showed the two cars here in the courtroom?
Yes, ma'am.
May I have just a moment with co-counsel?
Yes, ma'am.
Just a couple more questions, then, Your Honor.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Smith, did you ever see the occupants of the black Jetta again that evening?
No, ma'am.
Okay. What about the red Dodge Durango?
Yes, ma'am. They pulled back.
All right. Can you tell the jurors approximately how long it was after you saw them take off and the last shot was fired to when they returned? Approximate.
A few minutes, three to 5 minutes, and they pulled back in. They pulled down a couple spaces past where they were further away from the door entry.
And was your car still in the same location?
Yes, ma'am, it was. I was still standing in the same location.
And earlier we saw a white truck. Is that a car that had pulled in the interim, or do you know?
Yes, ma'am. He pulled in after all this had happened.
All right. Did you remain there and speak to the police?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Okay. Did you ever speak to any of the occupants of the red Dodge Durango at that point?
No, ma'am, at that point I did not.
Okay. And, sir, did you ever see any of those young men exit the red Dodge Durango with any sort of weapon?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Did you ever see any object being thrown out of the car towards a roof,
No, ma'am, I did not.
towards a dumpster,
No, ma'am, I did not.
towards anything?
No, ma'am.
Did you have a chance later to speak to the young men who had been in the red Dodge Durango?
We said, hey, that's about it. Everyone was waiting in the gate gas station. to
Did
give
you
a
ever
statement.
discuss the specific facts of the case or any potential testimony with any of those young men or with any other witness?
No, ma'am, I did not.
Did you tell the police what you had seen that night?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And did you give a deposition in this case to Mr. Strolla?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
I have no further questions of Mr. Smith. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, since the jury, I've told you we would try and break at the hour and a half, 2 hour mark. We've almost been 2 hours. Mr. Strolla,
Yes, sir.
how long do you think you're going to be?
I was only going to probably be about 5 minutes, Judge, so I didn't know if you wanted to wait for.
All right, then we can do that. We'll go ahead and do cross-examination by Mr. Strolla, and then we'll take our break, okay?
Thank you.
Mr.
And
Strolla, go
can-
right ahead.
If it may please the court, the microphone again, Judge.
Yes, sir, that's fine.
Mr. Smith, how are you doing today?
Doing good, sir.
Okay. Now, Miss Corey asked you some questions about did you see things thrown from the SUV, right?
Yes, sir.
You said no.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Tell me what the SUV did when it left your sight.
When it left the side, it pulled around the corner and pulled out of sight.
All right. When it left your sight, tell me what the red SUV did.
I don't know.
What did the occupants do?
I do not know.
Did they take anything out of the car?
I do not know.
Okay. Because they were out of your sight, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When they came back, isn't it true they parked all the way to the left of where you showed on Exhibit 5 and 6 of the state's evidence?
They parked a few spaces down. Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was to the left, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And on that side, the gate gas station ends, correct?
There's a corner there. Yes, sir.
Okay. And there's no lights over there where the bushes are there?
It's not lit as well as the front entrance. No, sir.
All right. Do you specifically know that there's lights on that side by the bushes? Is that what you're saying?
I don't specifically know that there are or are not. No, sir.
You're just assuming.
It doesn't appear to be as bright there as it is at the front entry.
Okay. And we can rely, the photographs that you just talked about and did the little teleprompter on, those are accurate from that night, correct?
Yes, sir.
So that lighting, when you say is adequate lighting, is accurate on those photos?
It appears to be. Yes, sir.
Okay. They weren't made darker by the photographs or made brighter.
It doesn't appear to be, no, sir.
Okay. Now, isn't it true that you were walking to your car and weren't paying attention to either Mr. Dunn's car or that red SUV, correct?
Correct, yes, sir.
And in fact, you said the music was so loud that when you pulled in, you actually had to back up and go to another spot.
Correct.
Were your windows up or down?
Up.
Okay. And was your music playing?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So even over your music and windows up, you could hear that music?
Yes, sir.
And those men, you said 4 men were in there for some time, correct?
Yes, sir.
Did they go in the store before or after you?
I do not know, sir.
Don't recall?
I don't recall, no, sir.
Okay. And matter of fact, that little parking area with the sidewalk is probably about 10 feet or more across, right?
Probably 8 to 10 feet, yes, sir.
Okay. Judge, you mind if I use the floor?
That's all right.
Thank you. So I'm going to kind of switch on you so you don't have to come back down. So you've got the Durango right here.
Yes, sir.
You've got the Jetta right next to it, right?
Yes, sir.
Space 1 and space 2.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you've got about 10 plus feet of sidewalk, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you've got some grass and mulch you have to walk through, right?
Yes, sir.
And then we have your car.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, we see you walk out on video.
Yes, sir.
Was that accurate timing?
Yes, sir.
Does it look like the video was altered at all?
No, sir, it does not.
Okay. And it takes probably how many seconds for you to walk outside back to your truck?
15, 20.
And in that 20 seconds, you're saying you walk outside the door and you're standing on the back quarter panel of Mr. Dunn's car, correct?
Between the back passenger door, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, the back quarter panel, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you recall taking a deposition in this case?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall telling me it was the back quarter panel?
It's in that back area of the car, yes, sir.
Okay. So now it takes you 20 seconds to walk from a front door to the back quarter panel of the Jetta, correct?
Yes, sir.
Were you standing still or were you talking on the phone, smoking a cigarette?
I have my phone with me all the time. I may have looked at my phone. I don't recall.
All right. And on the video, if you weren't on your phone, you probably weren't on it walking out the door.
Right.
Okay. And if you were on your phone, would you admit that's a distraction where now you're listening to somebody on the phone and talking at the same time then?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And is that a possibility?
No, sir. If I'd have been on the phone, I'd have stayed on the phone while all this happened.
Okay. So again, you're now telling this jury it takes you 20 seconds to walk from the front door to the back quarter panel of the Volkswagen Jetta, correct?
Roughly.
Okay. Now, can you tell me why when you come out the front door, do you not walk on the sidewalk towards your car right here?
I have direct access to my door if I go across the planet area.
All right. So again, you walk down the sidewalk to cut across the mulch or the planted area?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, are you focusing at all on the SUV?
No, sir.
You even looking in that direction?
No, sir.
Are you even looking at Mr. Dunn's direction?
No, sir.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you remember